Hi everyone, it's Dr. Buchanan, and this is just a short video to show you and give you an idea of how to do discourse analysis at a basic level. And basically what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at this passage. This is Isaiah 11 verses 1 through 5, Isaiah 11, 1 through 5. So I'll actually put that right up here, Isaiah 11, 1 through 5. And this is the passage that we'll be looking at and working with today. Now, this particular approach is really good for exegetical papers, sermons, teaching, writing, you name it. This is really good for personal Bible study. This is really great for all of those things. So what we're going to do is we're going to divide this passage up based on concepts, ideas, thoughts, those different types of things. And we're going to use these questions right here: who, what, when, where, why, and how to guide us. So basically we're going to let the text show us how to understand it better. Okay, so we'll do that, and then from that we'll see what our main points are and also what our subpoints are. So the main points are the main thoughts, the main ideas, and the subpoints all come underneath those main points to support it and give further explanation to those main points. So we're going to do that, and then we're also going to come back and take a look at maybe some observations and some things that we can see in the passage that we may not be able to see just by reading the passage if it looks just like this. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and get started. So we'll start here with verse 1. There shall come forth a shoot. Well, where does the shoot come from? It comes from the stump of Jesse. So we're going to put this shoot. The shoot comes from the stump of Jesse. So see how it's connected there? The stump of Jesse further explains where this shoot is coming from. Then we also have and a branch. Well, where does this branch come from? Well, this branch comes from his roots. So from the roots of Jesse, this branch will bear fruit. Okay, so then let's move on to the second verse. Okay, so now it looks like we're talking about something a teensy bit different here. So we're going to start off on the left-hand side again. Okay, so the Spirit of the Lord shall rest upon him. Okay, so that's going to be the main point. Who is this Spirit? Well, this Spirit is a spirit of wisdom and understanding, the spirit of counsel and might, the spirit of knowledge and the fear of the Lord. So all of these words right here further support or explain who or what the Spirit of the Lord is. Okay. Now it looks like we're shifting a little bit again. So we're talking about whoever this shoot, whoever this branch is. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to scoot this over a little bit so that way his right here aligns closely with him. But what's interesting about this is that we have the fear of the Lord right here at the end of verse 2, and we have the fear of the Lord right here right near the beginning of verse 3. So this is an indicator that there's something going on here that is going to connect whatever's going on here with whatever is going on here. So let's just keep moving forward and see what we can find. Okay, so we're still talking about this person, whoever this person is. So let's go ahead and press return here. Okay, so we're still talking about this person. All right, so he shall not judge by what his eyes see. Still talking about this person. Or decide by what his ears hear. But with righteousness he shall judge the poor and decide with equity for the meek of the earth. Righteousness connects with both. He shall judge the poor and decide with equity for the meek of the earth. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go ahead and press return. And I'm going to connect this part of the verse with righteousness. So that way we know that righteousness is being used for both. He shall judge the poor and decide with equity for the meek of the earth. Okay? And we're just going to keep moving forward. These are different things that this person is going to do. He shall strike the earth with the rod of his mouth. And with the breath of his lips he shall kill the wicked. Righteousness shall be the belt of his waist. And faithfulness the belt of his loins. Okay? So what happens at this point then is that we can see what our main points are. Our first main point is going to come up from here. Our second main point is going to be right here. And the Spirit of the Lord shall rest on him. Our third main point is going to come from right here. His delight shall be in the fear of the Lord. Everything that we see underneath, all of these are subpoints, and they all support the main point. The same is true over here. All of these are subpoints, and they support this main point. Okay, so what we would do then for an exegetical outline is we would take all of these things and write them in sentence form and connect a verse with them. Okay, so let me show you what I have for my outline right here. Okay, let me actually zoom this out a little bit. All right, so this is where we summarize and organize our passage. So the first main point, a branch is coming from the stump of Jesse. Okay, so what I did was I took a branch is coming from the stump of Jesse. So I connected these two as the main point for that. Let's go back here. So a branch is coming from the stump of Jesse. That's in verse 1, and that is a complete sentence. We have a shoot will come from the stump of Jesse, verse 1. A branch from his, we're talking about Jesse, a branch from Jesse's roots shall bear fruit, and that's also in verse 1. So both of these support verse 1. Okay, the second one, the Spirit of the Lord shall rest upon him. This is verse 2. What we can do with this is, let me show you. You can do it like this, so you can have multiple subpoints for this, in which that's what I would actually suggest doing, or you can do it all as one subpoint. So what I would actually do for this is include, this is all in verse 2, so just do just do a bunch of copying and pasting. Just like this, all the way through. Okay, so all of that is divided up just like it is over here on this discourse analysis. And one of the things that you can do over here is just go ahead and copy and paste this all the way down. So Spirit of wisdom, Spirit of understanding, Spirit of counsel, oops, T. Okay, so in the spirit of the fear of the Lord. Okay, All right, so this is basically what our outline looks like. So we have verse 1, the main point, and subpoints. We have the second main point, the Spirit of the Lord shall rest on him, in a complete sentence. All of the subpoints come underneath it, and all of those are written in full sentences. Some people would actually say that the spirit of knowledge and the spirit of the fear of the Lord should come together. So that's another option. Really, what we're doing here, that there's a little bit of science to it and a lot of creativity. The point is really just to engage the passage, to look at it a little bit differently and try to understand what's going on. All right, so then the third point then is his delight will be in the fear of the Lord. Now the entirety of verses 3 through 5 are subpoints for this. So we would include all three verses 3, 4, and 5 in the main point. And then you can see the subpoints right here going all the way down, just like that. Okay. So that is how the exegetical outline works. Okay, now the next thing that we do is to look for observations. Now, I am a question person. I love questions. That's what I used to. That's what I'm used to. That's how I learn. From scripture is by asking a bunch of questions. So normally it's a good idea to get at least 15 observations from a passage, just so you have a variety of different options, of different things that you can do, different routes that you can go. All right, so my first question is, well, for me, what is the relationship among the shoot, stump of Jesse, branch, and his roots? Okay, and that comes from verse 1. Okay, so with my observations, I'm also going to put the verse that it's connected with. So this question is all about what's going on here, because I want to try to understand what these things are and what the relationship is with each other. Okay, another question would be, another good question to ask, what does it mean for the Spirit of the Lord to rest upon him? Okay, so I want to know what this means right here in verse 2. So that's in verse 2. And then something that's really interesting about this passage is that everything that's in verse 2 connects with verse 3. So what ends up happening here is that the spirit of the fear of the Lord, I'd like to see if there's a connection here with his delight shall be in the fear of the Lord. Okay, so that is a question that is very important to ask. So we could say, what is the connection, if any, between, let's do the fear of the Lord, between the Spirit, we'll just do the fear of the Lord. And that's in verse 2. And his delight shall be the fear of the Lord. Okay. And that then is in verse 3. Okay. So we keep moving forward, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask the question if these words, these things over here, connect with what's going on over here. Okay, so we've already connected these two. Now we're going to move up to the spirit of knowledge, and he shall not judge by what his eyes see. So what is the connection, if any, between Knowledge, so that's verse 2. And that's in verse 3. So we just do this really with the entirety of both sections, just to see if there is any sort of connection there. So we just did knowledge, so we'll do the spirit of might in verse 2, and this is implied, he shall not. Decide disputes by what his ears hear. Okay, and that again is in verse 3. Okay, so this connection, if any, between the spirit, we'll do the spirit of counsel. That's in verse 2. And do this here. Let's move this back up. Spirit of counsel, righteousness, he shall judge the poor. That is in, oops, I'll just go ahead and connect all of that together. All right, so now we're in verse 4. Let's do this. I just did counsel, so we'll do spirit of understanding. That's in verse 2. And that's in verse 4. Okay, so do this again. Oops. This again. Between the spirit of wisdom. So again, this is verse 2. And it's in verse 4. So basically what we're doing with all of these is we're looking for different avenues to explore. We're looking for different possibilities of how these things could be connected, and by looking to see about these connections, inevitably what that means is that we're also going to be looking and researching what these terms mean along the way. So that's something else that's really, really cool. Okay, so we've done the things with the Spirit of the Lord, with these aspects of the Spirit of the Lord and these aspects of delighting in the fear of the Lord. But I'd also like to see if there's a connection between the Spirit of the Lord resting on him and righteousness being the belt of his waist and faithfulness the belt of his loins. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to keep doing this. As you can tell, I'm a bit of a relationship person, so if there's any sort of relationship connected to it, if there's any sort of connection, then I'm going to want to know. All right, so let's go ahead and copy and paste this. All the way down here. Okay, and again, this is verse 2. Okay, we'll copy and paste this. Righteousness shall be the belt of his waist, and that is in verse 5. And that is also in verse 5. Okay. Let's see other questions that we might have. I want to go back to verse 2. One of the things that I think might be worth exploring is the Spirit of the Lord right here. Are all of these different aspects, are they different aspects of the one Spirit of the Lord? Are they different functions of the Spirit of the Lord, or are they different spirits? So that would be a question worth exploring. So we're going to go ahead and include that there. So is the Spirit in verse 2 multiple spirits, or is it one Spirit with multiple functions? Okay, so again, that's coming from verse 2. Something else that would be worth, that is important to ask in this passage is in regards to the fear of the Lord. So what exactly does the fear of the Lord mean? So what does the fear of the Lord mean? So what does it mean? What does it refer to? Or what is it referring to? Okay, and that comes from verses 2 and 3. Other ideas, other concepts, other questions could be things along the line of the word delight that's in verse 3. Let me show you where it's at. And his delight shall be in the fear of the Lord. So what does delight mean in this context? That's another question that is good to ask about this passage. So what does the word delight mean in verse 3? Okay, so we're dealing with verse 3. Something else that I would like to know is a little bit about, oh, where did it go? Let me go up here. This right here. I think it would be interesting to explore this right here, judging by what his eyes see and deciding by what his ears hear in verse 3. So we're going to go ahead and include that as an observation, because that's something that I personally would like to know. So what does it mean to judge by what his eyes see, and decide by what his ears hear? Okay, and that is in verse 3. Okay. Also, I think it would be interesting to find out, the belt of his waist and the belt of his loins. What are those things? What's the connection there? So we're going to go ahead and include a question on that as well. So what is the relationship between the belt of his waist and the belt of his loins. Okay, and that's in verse 5. And then it's good to come up with at least 15 observations. I'm sure we could go on and on and on and on with this passage, but we're just going to look for one more. So let's go ahead and go back to verse 5. We just asked a question about the belt of his waist and the belt of his loins. It'd be interesting to do something with righteousness and faithfulness. So maybe we could ask a question along the lines of how righteousness and faithfulness compare and contrast with each other. So hopefully we can understand that a bit better as well. So how do righteousness and faithfulness compare and contrast with each other? Okay. All right, so now we have 15 observations. Okay, so what I would do if I was working on a paper per se, I would take these right here, all of my observations, do a copy and paste, and put it in right after the exegetical outline right here. So we're going to go ahead and do the observations. Make sure that it's bolded so that way we can tell the difference between the two. Observations, and then just copy and paste right there, and you've got 15 observations. Okay. So that is a little bit about how to do discourse analysis. I hope this is enjoyable for you, and I hope that you can take this and then teach other people how to do it as well.